This is what I would say to you if you wanted to start doing your makeup and you've never really done it before. So my mom, who is in her 50s, actually recently was like, I kind of want to start wearing makeup. And she was like, I just want to feel a little bit better about myself. I want to wear more makeup. And this woman has never really worn makeup in her life. So the first thing that I said to her, well, actually, I'm going to go ahead and take my makeup off so we can do this together. I am using a makeup wipe for this, but my credentials are I've been a cosmetologist and a makeup artist for 10 years and a makeup enthusiast for a lot longer than that. I love it. I think it's a lot of fun, but I feel like people overcomplicate things when they talk about beginners starting to do their makeup. And as you can see, I wasn't really wearing a ton to begin with, but we're just going to dive right into this. Yes, I'm using a makeup wipe. I don't want any judgment. Or you can. It doesn't actually matter. Okay. So the first thing that I would say to this person is this is just makeup, not skincare, skin prep, skin anything like that. So put that out of your mind. The second thing is that they're going to need a brush set. And I shy away from saying the word cheap. I don't want you to buy a cheap brush set because that can really affect how you do your makeup. But some sort of brush set. e.l.f. makes a great brush set. I like these ones with the black handle. Real Techniques. So that's the very first thing that you're going to purchase is some sort of brush set. You want to make sure that it has some sort of fluffy brush in it. You want to make sure that it has an eye brush, and that's about it. Honestly, you could probably go out and buy whatever brush that you want, but I recommend Jessup brushes, Real Techniques, these e.l.f. brushes with specifically the black handle. I know they have some white handled ones. I don't think those ones are quite as good, but that's the first thing that I would recommend. When I was talking to my mom, she said this to me. She was like, I feel like I want to start wearing makeup, but I don't know where to start. And I was like, first things first, you're going to want a light coverage foundation, medium to light, but I would say more on the light side. Now, there are a lot of these. Honestly, it ranges anywhere from a BB cream to like a tinted moisturizer to something like that. But what you're going to look for is tinted moisturizer. You're going to look for BB cream. You're going to look for CC cream. You're going to look for light coverage. Those are the things that I would recommend when it comes to picking a base. So these are the ones that I have here. This one is a old school classic, the Maybelline Dream BB cream. There is this one. This is the one I'm probably going to use today. This one's a little bit more expensive, but it's the CoverGirl Simply Ageless Skin Perfector Essence. Very, very light coverage, just adds a wash of color. And this one is probably the heaviest coverage of the bunch, and it's still very, very light. This is the L'Oreal True Match Nude Hyaluronic Tinted Serum. It's a mouthful, but those are the three that I would say, just off the top of my head, are great ones. So that's the first thing I would recommend. And remember, this is only 5 products, counting the brushes. So you're going to get your brushes, and you're going to pick up something with a light coverage. Part of the reason I say light coverage is important is because you're going to have them apply this with their hands. I think especially with beginners or people that really haven't experienced a lot of makeup, I find that something that they can like really dig their fingers into, that's not going to be too heavy of barrier of entrance. This is great for that because this is going to give them that light wash of color, some evening properties without getting anything too crazy. Now, I know a lot of people are not going to necessarily agree with me on this. I personally, if you've not really done a lot of makeup or spent a lot of time doing makeup, I would skip over the concealer. Now, there are some really great concealers that are probably very beginner friendly. And if you guys want, I can talk about those in another video. But I will say this to start, I think that concealer adds, and concealer can be a little bit tricky, particularly if you've never used it before because you don't want it to migrate. You do have to set concealer in place. If you have a lot of fine lines and wrinkles, that can cause issues. So I would say put your foundation on, you're golden. Do you see how, like, yes, it did change a little bit, but nothing too crazy. It just kind of reduced some of the redness and gave me an even wash of color. That's why I say light coverage, because if they're not used to seeing makeup on their face, this is going to give them a really low barrier to entry, or you a very low barrier to entry. Like I said, this is what I was telling my mom. So you're getting almost exactly what I told my mom. The next thing that I would say is if you're interested in applying a little bit of eyeshadow, I would only buy a bronzer. You can also get some really, really cheap eyeshadows that are like the $4 e.l.f. bite-sized ones. But my recommendation is if you're not used to doing a lot of makeup, buy a bronzer. Just a bronzer, because this way you can use it to bronze your face, but also just add a little wash of color into your eyelids and call it good, right? So what I would say, there are two ones that I think are really, really great for beginners, great overall. This one from e.l.f., I think they're $9. There's the Primer Infused Bronzer. Or the Laguna Bronzer. This has been around for years. It's a tried and true. I'm going to use my e.l.f. because I really actually quite like this bronzer. And we're going to just pick a little bit up, tap a little bit off. Now, I would say this is completely not necessary, but I like to put just a little bit on my cheeks, just a little. And keep in mind, this is a beginner makeup. So I typically do wear more makeup than this, but we're just going to go beginners. So we're just going to put a little bit on our cheeks, a little bit on our forehead, and call it good, right? So let's say you do want to put just a little wash of color on your eyelid. This is why I say grab a bronzer, because first of all, cheap. And especially if we're doing like a 5 product or less, this is great for that because we can pop just a little bit on our eyeshadows with just a fluffy brush. That's why I said we need like a brush pack, because we want something to put this on our eyelids. So let's just add like a little swash of color. I'm not going all over my eyelids, just in the crease, and kind of throwing that on. Okay, nothing crazy. It gave me just a little bit of color. Again, this is very, very minimal. But I think that the thing that most makeup artists forget is that if someone doesn't wear a lot of makeup, right, it is so overwhelming to say you need this and this and this and this. 10 products is insane for a beginner. It just is. I'm sorry. You can't convince me otherwise. That's crazy. So the next thing that I would say is blush. I do think that blush is still really important. I think that bronzer is probably more of an optional step. I don't think blush is optional, especially even if you've just put on a tinted moisturizer or a tinted foundation. I have almost no life in my cheeks, so I think blush is very important. So I again have two here. If you want a lower, like a drugstore option, this is great. This is again the e.l.f. Primer Infused Matte Blush. Fantastic. If you want something that's a little higher end, the Tarte Amazonian Clay Blush. Again, this has been around forever. It's a very tried and true product. You can say I've loved mine a little bit and it's doing well. But this is the blush that I'm going to use for today. Let me grab a blush brush. Let's use this guy. Okay. So we're just going to pop some of this onto our cheeks. You can kind of do the apple of your cheeks. I like to do higher up and kind of work my way down. Completely optional. It's just kind of based on the placement, but I place it very high up. Okay. Do you see how that kind of brought some color back? I probably go a little crazy with blush, and that's probably because I grew up in 2016 era makeup where no one wore any blush, but I'm also going to just put just a little wash in my eyelids and kind of bringing it out. Again, we didn't buy eyeshadow, so this is kind of tying together our whole look. Just a little bit, right? Last but not least, we have mascara. Now, I don't think this is an optional step. I think that there are a lot of people that lately have decided that mascara is not a thing. I think mascara is important. I think it ties a look together. I do have a little bit left over from earlier that I wiped off, but let's talk mascara. There are so many different kinds, but I do think mascara is important to make things look kind of finished. I think that people would probably argue that a lip will make things finished, all of that, but I think that lips and lipstick kind of lead into lip liner, and then people talk about gloss or liquid lipstick or this or that, and I think that it becomes really overwhelming really quickly. So that's why I said mascara. Now, there are a lot of great mascaras out there. Unfortunately, I am very picky with my mascaras because I tend to have a lot of flakes and smudges. So these are the ones that I do like for that. So the first one, I've been using this one for years. This is the Tarte Maneater Mascara. This is my all-time favorite. It separates, lifts. It's all-time favorite mascara right here. I have probably repurchased this easily 30 times. I mean, easily. But if you don't want to spend quite as much money on that, totally understand. There is this one from Tower 28. It's the Make Waves mascara, or this one is a drugstore one. This is the L'Oreal Luminous mascara. A lot of mascaras have black or brown options. So if you're a little bit fairer than I am, I would definitely recommend more towards brown, especially if you're not wanting it to be quite as striking. But let me go ahead and I'm going to use this one. It is a fantastic one, and it's one of the more affordable options. Keep in mind, we are only talking about basic, right? So make sure, and I am using an eyelash curler. You definitely don't have to. All right, so I curled my lashes, and again, we're using this one from L'Oreal. I tried to pick the cheaper products to use, mostly because I actually really do like them, not necessarily because they're cheaper. But I also think that that creates a lower barrier to entry when it comes to doing makeup. So what I'm doing here is I'm just swiping some of this on, and notice I haven't dipped back in. I'm going to do a second coat, but I'm going to dip in, and then do you see how I get like a little extra product on the tip of that? I'm just going to wipe that off so it doesn't get in my way. And then this is my second coat, but we're going to really, really dig into those lashes. Oh, and I just poked myself. We'll take care of that in a minute. Beautiful. Love that. We're going to do the other eye. And I'm probably only going to do 2 coats. I don't know what it is, but for some reason in person, this mascara doesn't look black. It looks brown. But it's definitely black. And it shows up as black. Just maybe it's the lighting. All right, so that is on. Now, this is very, very basic, but we had a tinted moisturizer of some kind. We had a bronzer, we had a blush, we had mascara, and then we had tools. That's it. A very basic makeup routine. First of all, that's not going to break the bank, but is also simple enough that if you're not used to makeup, you can do this. This is easy. This is not a lot. This took me, I mean, in person, it's going to take a little bit longer, but if I were to just sit down and do this, this would take 5 minutes. To me, this is a low barrier to entry. Now, honestly, there's tons of videos that you can find that will also tell you how to shape your eyebrows, that will also tell you how to do lip stuff, that will also tell you how to do all of these other things. And I think that those are great if you want to get more into makeup, but it's just something really, really simple to try out. I think that this is a great option. So this is where we're going to go ahead and end things. I hope that you found this helpful. YouTube should be popping up 2 videos over here for you to check out. Thanks for watching. Bye.